Hey guys, my name is Jason with S&J Forest Products, and I had a big old hemlock blow down behind me in this last storm. And on this video, I want to figure out how much carbon this tree sequestered in its lifetime. Now, one of the first things I got to do is I got to get the stump bucked off the trunk and not kill myself doing it. I don't know if you can see my skidder back there, but the stump is over horizontal and it's leaning back. So if I buck it now, the stump's going to fall on me and squash me. So I'm gonna take a choker from my skidder, wrap it around the stump, and put some pressure on it so at least that stump is supported. And then once the tree gets bucked off, then I can pull the stump over, flop it back in the hole, and we can get the tree measured. So there's a couple things we gotta do here. Look at the size of the stump. It's massive, it's huge. It's probably 15 feet tall. And the reason why my trees are blowing over is this is just clay under here. You can see where the roots were grown down, and it's just solid clay. They don't have hardly anything to grip onto, and so when the wind kicks up, they just blow over. There's nothing to hold the tree to the ground, and it looks like from this root wad, it looks like it was grown on a concrete slab. The roots just go straight horizontal right away. But I got to figure out how to get my main line and choker up over the top of this stump. So let's see if I can do that, and then we'll pull this baby over. Now I've got quite a bit of tension on the cable and on the stump, so hopefully when I buck it off, it doesn't come tipping over on me. Okay, don't get squashed. I don't know how I'm going to get my choker out. What's the sketchiest thing you've ever done? That's got to be up on my list. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to count the rings on the stump, figure out how old it was, and then I'm going to limit all the way up, all the way to the very top, and then we can measure the tree and figure out the volume. 142 years. This was probably one of the older trees on my property, and it's not very big. It's going to be hard to measure the diameter because it's kind of oval shaped. But 142 years. So this tree germinated back in 1880. Is that right? So now I'm going to measure the height. We're going to treat it like a long skinny cone. We're going to measure the volume, and then we can determine the carbon in it. Got my log tape right at the butt there. Now we're going to work our way out 50 feet. What do we guess? Anybody want to guess how tall this thing is? I'm going to say it's 120 feet. Leave me a comment below if you want to guess the length of this thing. 950. There's 100. 118 and a half. So I was pretty close. But pulled my log tape out. So the lesson there is only measure to 40 feet. Don't go all the way to 50. And then pull your log tape out. Bummer. So I'll have to get a new log tape. But let's do some math. We'll figure out the volume of this tree. It's going to be easiest to measure the diameter on this stump. So we're going to go outside to outside is 20 inches there, and 26 and a half there, 25, 24. So let's call it 24. So the volume of a cone is pi r squared times the height divided by 3. So Google has a really fancy little area calculator. It gives us 124 cubic feet of wood in the trunk of this tree. So there's a really cool website that I will put links to down below that estimates the amount of carbon per volume of wood for different species. Now on this one they have a hem fir, and they estimate that the amount of carbon stored in hem fir per cubic foot is 13.3 pounds. So when you multiply 13.3 times the volume of our tree, which was 124 cubic feet, you end up with 1,650 pounds of carbon was stored in that tree. But that's not the end of the story, because we have the stump, we have all the roots, we have all the branches. There's another website I'll show you, again, link in the description below, that estimates that the bole or the trunk of the tree only comprises about 75% of the carbon that the tree intakes. So the other 25% is in the branches and the stump. So if we divide that number by 0.75, we end up with that tree sequestering about 2,200 pounds of carbon in its lifetime, in 142 years. But again, that's not the end of the story, because that's how much carbon the tree stored, but how much CO2 did it remove from the atmosphere? Well, CO2 weighs 3.66 times more than the carbon in the tree. And this tree, in its entire lifetime, sequestered 8,000 pounds of CO2, or 4 tons. So one tree on my property over 142 years sequestered 4 tons of carbon. That is pretty cool. So a US citizen emits about 20 tons of CO2 per year. So I need to plant enough trees to sequester 20 tons of CO2. Well, that ends up being about 5 trees a year. And if I live to be 100, that's 500 trees. So if I plant 500 trees on my property and they all survive and they all grow up for 100 years or more, then I'm going to be carbon neutral. So far, I've planted over 15,000 trees on my property. Let's assume that only half of those live to be 100 years old or more. And this tree is actually pretty small compared to some of the other trees on my property. The Douglas fir and the spruce grow a lot faster and a lot larger. So just to estimate, let's say I have 10,000 trees that I plant that grow up over the next 100 years and sequester all that carbon. I'm going to sequester enough carbon for 20 people for their entire lifetime. So that's pretty cool. But it shows that it takes a ton of trees, literally lots and lots and lots of trees, to sequester someone's carbon for an entire lifetime. Well, now let's get this tree bucked up. We'll yard it to the landing, and then we can turn it into lumber. That didn't go the way I thought it would. I've skidded our hemlock up to the landing here, stacked it with all the rest of my carbon. It's ready to go up to the sawmill, see Fred, turn into boards. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next video.